well, what the hell is ascension? Like, I don't even know what that means. Does it mean you're like ascending out of your body into heaven or into a spiritual space or something like that? I don't know. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what awakening is. Okay, this comment is just too juicy to pass up. This is from Gribwich, and they're quoting me. It says, it's right here, awakening right here, right now, and anyone can have an awakening. Those are their quotes of me. And here's the response. No, you're wrong. You're discussing something that sounds good and intriguing, but I don't feel it is possible for me. I don't know how to break this so-called illusion you speak of. I've been waiting for years, and ever since I first became aware of this ascension business. Yet I still haven't been granted an awakening by spirit. For some reason, I have not been deemed worthy of having one. I say this because at this very late stage, to not even have had one ascension symptom, neither physical or mental or emotional, must mean I'm only here to be part of the furniture, to watch everyone else become enlightened, but with me standing on the sidelines being a bitterly angry observer. This is how I view my situation. Okay, I'm not going to pull any punches, right? Because this sounds authentic. This sounds like this person is sincere in what they're saying. They sound frustrated. They sound like they are really interested in awakening. I'm going to make that assumption. That's why I'm not going to pull any punches, so don't be offended, but I'm going to be direct. You took the time to write all this out, so I'm going to assume you actually mean it, that you actually mean that this is what you're interested in. Although there are certainly some competing agendas here. I can sense that, but I'll unpack it. But so my point here is to be direct and point you past these fixations, and I'm doing it for your own benefit. I'm doing this because part of you seems to be actually asking for a pointing to what awakening truly is. So I'm making that assumption if you leave comments like this. So here we go. Again, this may not be easy to hear, or maybe this is what you want to hear. I don't know. But understand this comes from a place of compassion. Like, I really am not trying to offend you. I'm not trying to pick on you or pick apart your worldview or anything, but I'm going to be direct because it sounds like, as you said, it's late in the game here. You sound very frustrated. So here we go. So first of all, you mentioned that you had heard about Ascension a long time ago, right? Well, what the hell is Ascension? Like, I don't even know what that means. Does it mean you're like ascending out of your body into heaven or into a spiritual space or something like that? I don't know. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what awakening is. That's an idea. That's a concept. It's a spiritual concept. It's fine. It's great. I have no problem with people believing whatever concepts they want and living in whatever spiritual realm they want, but it's a mental realm, right? That's just not what I'm talking about. If you're interested in awakening in the way I'm talking, that's not it. It has nothing to do with that. So you don't really have to even discard those beliefs. Just realize that is not what I'm talking about. But if you distract yourself trying to get ascension and looking up what it means and the symptoms and these sorts of things, like, forget it. It's just not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you into your mind more. It's going to get you up into your head more, right? I don't even know what that means, right? And then there's this thing about ascension. Symptoms haven't been granted to you by source with a capital S. What the heck is source? What is that? Do you know what that is? Is it just another word for God? Is it another word for the universe or something? I don't know. Like, I don't really know what you mean by that. And I sense, and I'm pretty darn sure based on this whole paragraph, that to you, that's a concept. So forget about it. Set it aside. Don't worry about what you think source is. It's not going to help you here. It's just not going to help you, right? And you already know this because you wrote this whole long paragraph about how frustrated you are and how nothing's happened and so forth. I'm telling you why nothing's happened. Because you're fixated on thoughts. You're fixated on ideas, right? I told you I was going to be direct, but this is a bunch of ideas. There's a bunch of spiritual concepts, ideas, higher self, ascension, source, like blah, blah, blah. All of it. The same thing can even apply to terms like non-duality, consciousness, awareness, like those can all become concepts. All of this can become concepts. You're never going to take the first step, and it's a big step. It's a step out of what you take yourself to be, as long as you're binding to concepts. Doesn't matter what they are. Doesn't matter how nuanced they are. Doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how new agey they are, or how much they resonate with what you want. None of that matters, right? That's the thing with New Age, is it kind of caters to what we want instead of old doctrine where it caters to tradition, or caters to, in worst case scenario, it caters to a God who, in old biblical traditions, maybe has some of the sort of worst characteristics that we find in ourselves, anger, aggression, jealousy. It's literally it says that in the Old Testament, right? So there's these appeals to tradition, to emotion states, to the humanness of God, like all these things that we bind ourselves to these concepts with. Well, with New Age, we bind ourselves to concepts that are sort of rejecting all of that, but just grabbing onto a whole other set of ideas that are like, I just want to feel good. Like I want to have these things that sound cool. They sound fun. They sound like cool experiences. They sound like what I want, right? I want to finally feel good. I want to finally feel what source is. I want it to be granted something by source. I want to ascend, like all of that, right? All concepts. All of it is concepts. Just like the spiritual concepts that we adopt from old traditions and old doctrines, it's all concepts. So when I talk about moving beyond concepts, I'm talking about something very radical for the typical human mind. We're bound into concepts. So those are the spiritual concepts you've held on to, you've adopted and believe they are going to get you to awakening. They won't. They just won't. They'll get you to more concepts. They'll get you to some paradigm shifts sometimes, maybe feel good sometimes, but it's going to be balanced out with feeling just as bad other times. That is not awakening. Okay? Number one. Number two, the more dearly held concepts that we don't even know are concepts are completely laced within this. And that is, those are the concepts about you and your narrative, about being stuck, about being the one that's standing on the sidelines, watching other people get something. How do you know they're getting anything? Maybe you're watching other people talk about ascension and they're just making things up. They're stuck in their own concepts. They're stuck in their beliefs. They're stuck in their worldviews, right? Be careful who you're competitive with. If you're going to be competitive with anything or anyone, like really take a good view of how authentic are they? Maybe they're not that authentic or sincere anyway. Who knows? I have no idea. I'm not judging anyone specific. I'm just helping you question your own view, your own mindset, your own way of seeing the world, right? You got to question all of that and see that binding yourself to any kind of identity, a narrative identity, an identity that feels like this is my story, this has definitely happened to me, right? And I feel that here, it's like coming at me like, Angelo, you're wrong. Here's my story, and it's very true, and it's very tragic. But to me, it's a bunch of concepts, just like spiritual concepts, just like any kind of concepts, right? That's the next layer you really have to confront and address when you want to wake up, right? Right or wrong, good or bad, fun or not fun, it's just how it is, and it's true. Everybody who's had this shift has done exactly that. In one way or another, they found a way to challenge those fundamental concepts about who you are, where you came from, where you're going, what your story is, your problems, your solutions. Like that's what we have to confront here. That's what we have to challenge if we're talking about awakening. And we don't challenge them conceptually. You challenge them here in what you take yourself to be right now. What does it feel like to bind into those concepts, right? And here, this part, when we're really starting to challenge our own identity structure in the conceptual world, this is where things can get uncomfortable. And you have to know that. But again, you sound like you're already uncomfortable, so that's good. That's leverage. So as I said, I'm going to be direct. You have to challenge those. And when you start to challenge those, you're going to start to feel things like anger. You're probably already upset with me for even saying all this, or maybe you are, maybe you're not. But I could see how that could happen. That's fine. That's just a boundary emotion. You're starting to dig into your identity. That's what you have to do for this. And at some point when you sit down and you let go of, me and what I said and and anger towards me or anything that might have come up with this particular information or transmission or whatever, and you're all by yourself. And then you realize thought after thought that all of those stories you've been telling yourself about your past and how frustrated you are and other people and being left out and all, when you realize each one of those are just another thought, they're just fragments of conversations and reflections of the mind and memories, and they don't have anything to do with you. There's nothing there. You might feel some peace there. At some point, you're going to feel fear because that's terrifying. Well, who the fuck am I then? What is this? What is happening if all those beliefs I had about who I am and how I fit in and what I need and what I'm going to get and what I need to avoid and ascension and all, like when I let go of all of that, who the hell am I? What am I? What's left? And when you're sitting all by yourself in that, you may feel some serious fear. And that's also okay. So these barrier emotions are really why I think a lot of times when people move in more superficial spiritual circles, new age circles and so forth, that's why a lot of times they don't wake up. They don't realize that that's what this is about. Because if you have yourself convinced spirituality is about feeling good, you're not going to go here. You're going to keep sidestepping it and avoiding it. You're trying to use more concepts. When you realize, oh, wait a minute, the wheels have come off on my life. And my life is frustrating. And all these ways of being who I think I need to be and convincing others that I am this way and that way, including my traumas and my dramas and my pain and like all of that story and the information sharing around the story and the narratives and the conversations that have continued to be used to solidify my identity structure, none of that's real. Again, when you realize that, it's like now you're in a good place, but again, you're going to feel emotion. You're going to feel some fear, maybe some existential fear, and that's okay too. Keep going. Don't let one thought bind you, whether it's a doubt thought that says, oh yeah, but no, Angela, what you're saying is true, but it's not true for me. That's a thought, because that's based on the me that you think you are, which is going to refer back to these other storylines. It's always going to go back to the storylines. Question it, challenge it in yourself, and you'll see all those thoughts about you. They make a 180-degree turn and they go back to the storyline of who you think you are. And the more you notice this, the more you realize even the storyline is not really consistent. It's patchwork, right? It's conveniently brought up in certain situations with this person and that person and my public image and my personal internal image and all of it. These are very kind of hobbled together. They're not really a solid experience of identity. Start challenging that. Now, if this all sounds like what you're not interested in, that's fine. But then you're not interested in awakening in the way I'm talking about awakening. That's what I'm talking about. Period. Not everybody's interested in that, or at least not right now, maybe in the future. But if you get to the point of desperation where it sounds like you are, if you get to the point where you're just tired of being frustrated with these spiritual concepts and all this stuff, but believing the spiritual concepts, believing you actually haven't deserved to get the ascension, like you got to let go of that stuff, right? It's going to be a big relief to let go of it in some way. In other ways, it's going to be scary. That's what I'm talking about. Let go of all of it. And if you're interested in how to do that, go to my playlist. You can start with Basics of Awakening if you want, but then I have a playlist called Awakening Approaches. And that tells you very precisely how to do this, how to get past those thoughts, those beliefs, those narratives. There's many approaches there. If that's what you want, if awakening is what you want in the way I'm talking about it, and I just talked about it, great, you're in a good place. But if you want to keep holding on to the narratives and stories about how it won't work for you and here's why it won't work for me because I've tried this and that and blah, blah, I'm not going to get into complicity with your narratives. I can't. They're not real to me because they're not real to you either. They're just not real. They're ghosts. Yeah. So once you find out what is real, it's right in front of your face. You're feeling it right now. You're seeing it and hearing it right now. But it's not a narrative. It has nothing to do with a you that you think you are. Has nothing to do with a storyline or the past or time. You can't tell a story about what you are. You can't talk about what you are. It's impossible because if you start talking, you're talking about thoughts, which are stereotyped and subliminally communicated among humans all the time. That's the matrix. That's the only thing you can really talk about. And the version of identity that you talk about in that, including the spiritual failure identity, is actually nothing to do with your true nature. It's nothing to do with what I'm pointing to. So this could be really, really good news. Although I could see how it could be triggering to hear this. Again, I'm assuming you're sincere and take this advice.